Chapter 7. Grandfather died in 1898, and grandmother was left alone in the old homestead, so I gave up teaching and stayed home with her. By 1901, I was beginning to make a livable income for myself by my pen, though that did not mean everything I wrote was accepted on its first journey. Far from it. 9 out of 10 manuscripts came back to me, but I sent them out over and over again, and eventually they found resting places. Another extract from my journal may serve as a sort of milestone to show how far I had traveled. March 21st, 1901. Munsey's came today with my poem Comparisons in it, illustrated. It really looked nice. I've been quite in luck of late, for several new and good magazines have opened their portals to this poor wandering sheepkin of thorny literary ways. I feel that I am improving and developing in regard to my verses. I suppose it would be strange if I did not, considering how hard I study and work. Every now and then I write a poem which serves as a sort of landmark to emphasize my progress. I know, by looking back, that I could not have written it 6 months or a year or 4 years ago, any more than I could have made a garment the material of which was still unwoven. I wrote 2 poems this week. A year ago I could not have written them, but now they come easily and naturally. This encourages me to hope that in the future I may achieve something worthwhile. I never expect to be famous. I merely want to have a recognized place among good workers in my chosen profession. That, I honestly believe, is happiness. And the harder to win, the sweeter and more lasting when won. In the fall of 1901, I went again to Halifax and worked for the winter on the staff of the Daily Echo, the evening edition of the Chronicle. A series of extracts from my journal will tell the tale of that experience with sufficient fullness. 11 November 1901. I am here alone in the office of the Daily Echo. The paper has gone to press, and the extra proofs have not yet begun to come down. Overhead, in the composing room, they are rolling machines and making a diabolical noise. Outside of the window, the engine exhaust is puffing furiously. In the inner office, 2 reporters are having a wrangle. And here sit I, the Echo proofreader and general handyman. Quite a presto change from last entry. I'm a newspaper woman. Sounds nice? Yes, and the reality is very nice too. Being of the earth, it is earthy and has its drawbacks. Life in a newspaper office isn't all beer and skittles, any more than anywhere else. But on the whole, it is not a bad life at all. I rather like proofreading, although it is tedious. The headlines and editorials are my worst thorns in the flesh. Headlines have a natural tendency to depravity, and the editor-in-chief has a ghastly habit of making puns, over which I am apt to come to grief. In spite of all my care, errors will creep in, and then there is the mischief to pay. When I have nightmares now, they are of headlines wildly askew and editorials hopelessly hocused, which an infuriated chief is flourishing in my face. The paper goes to press at 2:30, but I have to stay till 6 to answer the phone, sign for wires, and read extra proofs. On Saturdays, the Echo has a lot of extra stuff, a page of society letters among the rest. It usually falls to my lot to edit these. Can't say I fancy the job much, but the only thing I positively abhor is faking a society letter. This is one of the tricks of newspaperdom. When a society letter fails to turn up from a certain place, say from Windsor, in due time the news editor slaps a Windsor weekly down before me and says blandly, "Fake up a society letter from that, Miss Montgomery." So poor Miss Montgomery goes meekly to work and concocts an introductory paragraph or so about autumn leaves and mellow days and October frosts, or any old stuff like that to suit the season. Then I go carefully over the columns of the weekly, clip out all the available personals and news items about weddings and engagements and teas, etc., hash them up in epistolary style, forge the Windsor correspondent's nom de plume, and there's your society letter. I used to include funerals too, but I found the news editor blue-penciled them. Evidently, funerals have no place in society. Then I write a column or so of giddy paragraphs for Monday's Echo. I call it Around the Tea Table and sign it Cynthia. My office is a back room looking out on a backyard in the middle of the block. I don't know that all the Haligonian washerwomen live around it, but certainly a good percentage of them must, for the yard is a network of lines from which sundry and diverse garments are always streaming gaily to the breezes. On the ground and over the roof, cats are prowling continually, and when they fight, the walls resound with their howls. Most of them are lank, starved-looking beasties enough, but there is one lovely gray fellow who basks on a windowsill opposite me, and looks so much like Daffy that, when I look at him, I could squeeze out a homesick tear if I were not afraid that would wash a clean spot on my grimy face. This office is really the worst place for getting dirty I ever was in. November 8th, 1901. I've had a difficult time trying to arrange for enough spare minutes to do some writing. I could not write in the evenings, I was always too tired. Besides, I had to keep my buttons sewed on and my stockings darned. Then I reverted to my old practice and tried getting up at 6 in the morning, but it did not work as of yore. I could never get to bed as early as I could when I was a country schoolma'am, and I found it impossible to do without a certain amount of sleep. There was only one alternative. Hitherto, I had thought that undisturbed solitude was necessary that the fire of genius might burn, and even the fire for pot boiling. I must be alone, and the room must be quiet. I could never have even imagined that I could possibly write anything in a newspaper office, with rolls of proof shooting down every 10 minutes, people coming and conversing, telephones ringing, and machines being thumped and dragged overhead. I would have laughed at the idea. Yea, I would have laughed it to scorn. But the impossible has happened. I am of one mind with the Irishman who said, you could get used to anything, even to being hanged. All my spare time here I write. And not such bad stuff either, since the Delineator, the Smart Set, and Ainsley's have taken some of it. I have grown accustomed to stopping in the middle of a paragraph to interview a prowling caller, and to pausing in full career after an elusive rhyme to read a lot of proof and snarled up copy. Saturday, December 8th, 1901. Of late, I've been busy with a capital B. Tending to office work, writing pot boilers, making Christmas presents, etc. Mostly etc. One of the etceteras is a job I heartily detest. It makes my soul cringe. It is bad enough to have your flesh cringe, but when it strikes into your soul, it gets on your spiritual nerves terribly. We are giving all the firms who advertise with us a free write-up of their holiday goods, and I have to visit all the stores, interview the proprietors, and crystallize my information into 2 sticks of copy. From 3 to 5 every afternoon, I potter around the business blocks until my nose is purple with the cold and my fingers numb from much scribbling of notes. Wednesday, December 12th, 1901. It is an ill wind that blows no good, and my disagreeable assignment has blown me some. The other evening I went in to write up the Bon Marche, which sets up to be the millinery establishment of Halifax, and I found the proprietor very genial. He said he was delighted that the Echo had sent a lady, and by way of encouraging it not to weary in well-doing, he would send me up one of the new walking hats if I gave the Bon Marche a good write-up. I rather thought he was only joking, but sure enough, when the write-up came out yesterday, up came the hat. And a very pretty one it is, too. Thursday, December 20th, 1901. All the odd jobs that go a-begging in this office are handed over to the present scribe. The very queerest one up to date came yesterday. The compositors were setting up, for the weekly edition, a story called A Royal Betrothal, taken from an English paper. And when about halfway through, they lost the copy. Whereupon the news editor requested me to go and write an end for the story. At first I did not think I could. What was set up in the story was not enough to give me any insight into the solution of the plot. Moreover, my knowledge of royal love affairs is limited, and I have not been accustomed to write with flippant levity of kings and queens. However, I fell to work and somehow got it done. Today it came out, and as yet nobody has guessed where the scene comes in. If the original author ever beholds it, I wonder what he will think. I may remark in passing that more than 10 years afterward, I came across a copy of the original story in an old scrapbook, and was much amused to discover that the author's development of the plot was about as different from mine as anything could possibly be. Thursday, December 27th, 1901. Christmas is over. I had been rather dreading it, for I had been expecting to feel very much the stranger in a strange land. But, as usual, anticipation was discounted by realization. I had a very pleasant time, although not, of course, so wildly exhilarating as to endanger life, limb, or nerves, which was, no doubt, just as well. I had a holiday, the first since coming here, and so was haunted all day by the impression that it was Sunday. I had dinner at the Halifax with B, and spent the afternoon with her. In the evening we went to the opera to see The Little Minister. It was good, but not nearly so good as the book. I don't care for dramatized novels. They always jar on my preconceptions of the characters. Also, I had to write a criticism of the play and cast for the Chronicle, and I dislike that very much. Saturday, March 29th, 1902. This week has been a miserable one of rain and fog and neuralgia, but I've lived through it. I've read proofs and dissected headlines, and fought with compositors and bandied jokes with the marine editor. I have ground out various blameless rhymes for a consideration of filthy lucre, and I've written one real poem out of my heart. I hate my pot-boiling stuff, but it gives me the keenest pleasure to write something that is good, a fit and proper incarnation of the art I worship. The news editor has just been in to give me an assignment for tomorrow. Bad cess to him. It is Easter Sunday, and I have to write up the parade down Pleasant Street after church for Monday's Echo. Palm Day, May 3rd, 1902. I spent the afternoon expurgating a novel for the news editor's use and behoof. When he was away on his vacation, his substitute began to run a serial in the Echo called Under the Shadow. Instead of getting some APA stuff, as he should have done, he simply bought a sensational novel and used it. It was very long, and was only about half done when the news editor returned. So, as it would run all summer in its present form, I was bidden to take it and cut mercilessly out all unnecessary stuff. I have followed instructions, cutting out most of the kisses and embraces, 2/3 of the lovemaking, and all the descriptions, with the happy result that I have reduced it to about 1/3 of its normal length. And all I can say, Lord, have mercy on the soul of the compositor who has set it up in its present mutilated condition. Saturday, May 31st, 1902. I had a good internal laugh tonight. I was in a streetcar and 2 ladies beside me were discussing the serial that had just ended in the Echo. "You know," said one, "it was the strangest story I ever read. It wandered on chapter after chapter for weeks and never seemed to get anywhere, and then it just finished up in 8 chapters lickety-split. I can't understand it." I could have solved the mystery, but I didn't. End of chapter 7.